Now we come to music. Now dance, especially in the West, is associated with music as a matter of course. Although you can have dance without music, but of course, as we've said before, you cannot have dance without rhythm, because you need that timing component. So dancers often try to time their footfalls and movements to the beat or rhythm of the music. And this becomes important, again, in terms of timing, if not other factors, which we'll get into in a couple of minutes. Dance also seeks to use the dynamic plot form of theater rather than the rules of music. So oftentimes with dance, when you're interpreting it, you're going to look at it more as a piece of theater than as a piece of music. The ideas of music, some of them are there, but it will generally follow a theatrical model. And the old purpose of music in dance was always to help people keep time. Imagine a square dance or something like that. The purpose of the band is to help them keep time, but it's not absolutely necessary. Then we have the mise-en-scene. Now, the mise-en-scene is really all of the setting and the visual information provided by the dance's setting. So everything you see on stage, from the dancer themselves to their costume to the lighting to the design, is all part of the mise-en-scene. And we do respond to all of this. Setting in dance can vary from elaborate to minimalist. Oftentimes ballet will be more minimalist, and when we get into more modern dance, we can get into some very, very elaborate stage settings. And that's supposed to give you some information about the story. It's supposed to help you understand what the dancers are doing on stage. Now, in modern dance, the floor itself actually becomes part of that setting. So that becomes key. We also look at costumes. So in ballet, we tend to see a very basic costume. And it's usually fairly straightforward. We have some form of dress or leotard, and it's going to be black, white, or flesh tone, or somewhere fairly similar. The reason is, in ballet, they don't want you to pay attention to anything else. They want you to pay attention to the grace of that body, and by not adding additional ornamentation, you're going to focus more on the little bit of information that you have. So that's why we don't see elaborate ballet costumes. On the other hand, in some other forms of dance, hip-hop dance, etc., you may see very elaborate costumes, in this case, light-up costumes, which again gives us an idea of what the dancers are trying to get across. That costume is one of the elements that you should pay attention to and you should read into when going to a dance event. Footwear is also important, as it will denote the style of dance. If the dancers are barefoot, it's probably modern dance. If they're wearing pointe shoes, it's probably ballet. It's also a functional element. So they have to wear the proper shoe for whatever it is that they're doing. But it's one of those places where you can get a good clue, a good hint as to what's going on in the dance that you're witnessing at the time. Then we have lighting. Now, the role of lighting in dance is twofold. First, lighting must enhance the three-dimensional movement of the dancers. So we have to think about the guy who's sitting 100 feet from stage, way off in the back. If I just have sort of plain everyday lighting like you would have in your apartment, they're going to have a hard time making out the gestures and movements of the dancers. But if I, as a director, use high contrast lighting where we have a lot of very bright highlights, very dark shadows, suddenly those movements become much clearer to the person sitting 100 feet away. Also, our brain will pick up on things like shadows and silhouettes and combine those subconsciously with what we're seeing on stage to enhance our understanding of what's happening. So in that way, lighting becomes very important. But there's one other way that it becomes important. It can give us a sense of mood, emotion, or setting. Now, this is important because in dance, they're trying to move you through a basic theatrical plot model, which means they need you to move to become maybe more and more energetic as we get towards the climax, recognize the climax, and then recognize the falling action. The most efficient way to do this, apart from the energy and speed at which they dance, is going to be to give us visual cues through the lighting. It can also give us a sense of emotion, just like we talked about with color theory and visual art. So blue could give us a sense of calm or depression. Red could give us a sense of energy. And in terms of setting, it could give us the time of day, which, if we're dealing with a narrative dance, becomes particularly important.